Good evening. I'm Amar Singh Pradhan. Let's begin with the top stories this hour. Politicians debate whether to deal with contentious issues first or promulgate charter ahead of a consensus government. Representatives of donor agencies recommend the government set up an independent body to look into reconstruction. Heatwave grips different parts of the country. Meteorological division says temperature to suit up in coming days. And Malaysia Airlines, technically bankrupt, plans to terminate 6,000 employees. The four parties have begun discussions on their next move. They are debating whether they should conclude all the contentious issues first or to promulgate the constitution with the clause of a consensus government. A meeting of Nepali Congress, UML, Unified Maoist and Madhesi Jan Adhikar Forum Loktantrik top brass was held at the Prime Minister's residence in Balwatar today. At the meeting, the parties discussed whether they should draw a conclusion on the contentious issues or to promulgate the constitution with the issues of debate intact. The parties are undecided on whether they should adopt a shortcut to promulgate a constitution and form a consensus government. They haven't been able to decide on which path the parties should take, while also centering on reconstruction. The politicians have said that they were in favor of writing a constitution within a month and then form a national consensus government. Nepali Congress and UML leaders are in favor of including the issues of constitution writing on which they have already reached an agreement. Unified Maoist and Madhesi-based parties have been stressing on the need to rest the contentious issues first. Only some major issues were discussed in the meeting between the leaders of the four main parties today. The leaders said they would reach an agreement before making their decision public. Constitution writing has been affected due to the differences between the parties. But since the April 25th earthquake, the politicians have been in favor of reaching an agreement at the soonest possible to promulgate the constitution. Federalism, form of governance, the judiciary and the electoral system are the key contentious issues. Inability of the parties to agree on these had foiled constitution writing in the past. A political consensus has built up in recent days to draft the constitution and take the nation on the path of reconstruction. However, with political parties always wanting to take the central stage, a national consensus government as prioritized might not be easy. Political parties have agreed in principle to promulgate the constitution through what they term fast-track method. Parties are saying that the promulgation of the constitution will be followed by a joint government of national consensus. Meanwhile, Devendra Raj Pandey, a minister in the post-1990 cabinet, is of the opinion that given the experience of the first Constituent Assembly, it is too early to be positive about a national consensus government. Likewise, another minister in the same cabinet, Nilambar Acharya, is in favor of a strong government rather than what the parties are harping at the moment. Barring Chief Justice Hilaraj Regmi-led non-political government, the country's history has only witnessed three consensus government in the past 6 decades. The 30-party alliance led by Unified Maoist has said that the formation of national unity government is not possible unless there is an agreement on the promulgation of the constitution. During a meeting held in Singhadarbar today, the opposition parties said that they will discuss the national consensus government only after they forge a consensus on the constitution promulgation. A spokesperson of the alliance, Prem Bahadur Singh, said that they will not campaign for government change before the constitution is promulgated. Meanwhile, alliance coordinator and Unified Maoist chairman Pushpakamal Dahal briefed the meeting about recent talks with the ruling parties. He ruled out chances of a national consensus government at the moment. The alliance meeting will resume tomorrow. The parties have been contesting the issue of formation of a new government. In this context, we had asked the residents of Kathmandu, how do you like the party's enthusiasm for a national consensus government? Before we take a short break, let's take a look at what they have to say.
Janata Ko Awaaz, brought to you by World Top in A-Level.
Welcome back. Representatives of the donor agencies have recommended the government to set up an independent body to look into the management of the reconstruction process. A meeting was organized with the donor agencies today ahead of the June 25th meeting on relief and reconstruction. They advised the government to either set up a commission or an independent body to look into the task of reconstruction.
We welcome the initiative of having this conference sooner rather than later. The conference at the timing is understandable because it's trying to meet the budget cycle of the 15th of July. However, as the Honourable Minister of Finance highlighted, it's important also that the people of this country, whose livelihoods and lives have been devastated dramatically by the earthquakes of 25 April and 12 May, they need to see some tangible and sustained hope for the future. And they want to rebuild their lives and their communities again. We already see that in these affected areas where people, without any great deal of support from us for the reconstruction phase, are getting on with it. And we need to help them do this more, do this better, and we need to do it in a more effective way as possible, which I think is an excellent opportunity for us to take stock of where we are and look forward to a new type of new future for the country.
It supports the financial sector. We're basically increasing the amount of budget support that will be made available through that vehicle, and we are intending to go to our board with that operation on June 29th. Also on June 29th, we hope to go to the board with an income and housing support project, which will aim to help address what we think is the greatest need arising out of the earthquake sequence that began on April 25th, and that is helping rural households who have lost their homes and their livelihoods, at least for a period of time, to reconstruct their houses and resume their ordinary lives.
They suggested that replicating India and Pakistan's example of formation of commissions in the aftermath of the disasters would be effective. They added that a separate draft of planning and evaluation for the upcoming meeting was required. They said that the meeting on June 25th would help map out constructive decisions for the reconstruction process. During the discussions, Finance Minister Ram Charan Mal requested,
discussed in the subsequent phase. This first meeting, this 25 June, is the broad overview and broad requirement, broad commitment. Within that framework, you have to have, of course, specific projects, specific themes. This will have to be discussed in details, which will take place in subsequent phases and subsequently.
Mahad requested the donor organizations to declare more aid to Nepal at this time of crisis. 30 international organizations and those stationed in Nepal participated in today's discussions. Nepal is holding a meeting of the international donor agencies on June the 25th. The participants of the meeting will be taken out on a trip to the areas affected by the earthquake before the meeting convenes in Kathmandu. A heat wave has gripped different parts of the country along with Kathmandu Valley. The Weather Forecasting Division has said that it will still take some time for monsoon rain to hit the country. On Friday, Jipail in western Nepal had measured a temperature of 40 degrees Celsius. The temperature in Dipal measured 39.9 degrees Celsius today. Meanwhile, temperatures in Nepalganj and Dang recorded 42 degrees Celsius, while it was 40 degrees Celsius in these two places on Friday. The temperature of 42 degrees Celsius in Nepalganj and Dang were also the highest recorded temperature for the day across the nation. Likewise, Birendranagar recorded 40 degrees Celsius in Bhairava, 38 degrees in Simara, among other places. The temperature in the valley hovered around 31 degrees Celsius, while it was 33 degrees Celsius today. The Weather Forecasting Division said that the temperature is likely to shoot up in the coming days in the absence of heavy rainfall. There were also slight drizzle in the different parts of western Nepal. The Weather Division said that this was not going to cause much fluctuation in the temperature. The temperature in central Nepal is likely to shoot up further in the coming days. The weather has not increased much in the northern region, while weathermen said that the mercury will remain under control in eastern Nepal. It has also been raining slightly in eastern Nepal, keeping the temperature under control. In Chitwan, the youth working in relief distribution have shifted the focus on the rehabilitation for the quake-affected victims. As the monsoon is just around the corner, tarpaulins alone are not appropriate shelter for the victims. The youth from Chitwan, along with the help of various organizations, have started building houses and temporary shelters in the remote villages. The damaged houses in the worst affected district, Dharechok in Chitwan, are being demolished and temporary shelters are being constructed. The civil servants along with the locals are building temporary houses in the worst affected villages like Soratok, Lamidada and Dusa. National Human Rights Commission has pointed out that there has been lack of coordination between the government and the donor agencies in terms of relief distribution and reconstruction. The Commission said that lack of coordination from the government has affected relief work. The National Human Rights Commission organized a program on the human rights situation and the work done by the Commission. The program evaluated the Commission's report on the rescue operation in the aftermath of the earthquake. The report says that the relief distributed by the government had only been sent to places with road access and not to remote areas. Chairman of NHRC Anup Sharma said that the relief distribution in most places had not been fair. He said that since the monsoon was nearing, the farmers should also be provided seeds for paddy plantation. The report says that the biggest challenge is in sector of health in the earthquake-affected regions. The Commission has also drawn the government attention to the possible health hazards due to carcasses of dead animals. It further said that because of the politicians' visits, relief was doubled in some places, while some places received nothing. NHRC also says that if the government planning is ineffective, proportionate distribution system would be affected. Nepal Bar Association General Secretary Sunil Kumar Pokhrel suggested that laws be introduced for disaster management. The speakers also stressed on the need to make the government's one-door policy effective for relief and reconstruction. And it's now time for segment Public Pulse, where SMSs with their opinion.
Brought to you by Nepal High
Consensus government. 13% of you voted for option A, indications of constitution. 31% of you voted for option B, crisis compulsion, and 56% of you voted for option C, power lust. And time for today's question in the segment Public Pulse. And the question is, why haven't paddy samplings been distributed to farmers affected by earthquake? And options are option A, apathy towards farmers, option B, cumbersome procedure, and option C, ineffective government mechanism. The voting is on. Type any W, select your option A, B, or C, and send it to 8080 and to share opinion with us. And we move on to some international news. Malaysia Airlines is technically bankrupt. Its chief executive announced a restructuring program and plans to cut about 6,000 jobs. The announcement follows the twin air disasters which forced its nationalization last year. The airline said it had offered jobs to 14,000 of its 20,000 workforce. The move was expected and follows the appointment of new chief executive Christoph Mueller in May. Mueller said the decline of performance started long before the tragic events of 2014. However, the airline is operating as normal and no flights are currently affected. In March last year, Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 disappeared with 239 passengers and crew aboard. The plane is still missing. 4 months later, flight MH17 was shut down by a suspected ground-to-air missile while in Ukrainian airspace with the loss of 298 passengers and crew. The two disasters proved to be the final straw for the already struggling business, which had reported losses for several years as a result of strong regional competition. A record-breaking attempt to cross the Pacific Ocean using a solar-powered plane has been aborted. Poor weather conditions are forcing the Solar Impulse craft to head back to Japan to land. The pilot was 36 hours into what was expected to be a 6-day journey from China to Hawaii. The team will now wait in Japan for clearer skies before attempting to continue. Bertrand Piccard, who has been watching the flight from Mission Control in Monaco, a spokesperson for the team, said the batteries were currently fully charged. This is the 7th leg in an attempt to circumnavigate the globe using just the energy of the sun. The experimental craft, which is covered in 17,000 solar cells, took off from Abu Dhabi in March. The Pacific crossing, however, was always going to be the most challenging part of this epic journey. The team has already had to wait for a month in Nanjing for the right weather conditions. The plane not only needs favorable winds to push forward, it also needs cloud-free skies during the day to soak up enough energy from the sun to enable it to fly during the night. Swiss pilot Andrei Burchov, who is flying solo, had been making good progress. However, in the early hours of Monday morning, the Solar Impulse team announced it was putting the plane in a holiday pattern while they assessed a worsening forecast. And with that, it's now time for another short break. We'll have more news when we come back. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. Nepal Oil Corporation has revoked the decision it announced earlier today to raise the price of petroleum products. The Nepal Oil Corporation had increased the price of petrol, diesel and kerosene by 2 rupees each, but NOC withdrew the decision after 2 hours. The prices were earlier harmonized according to the circular sent by the Indian Oil Corporation. Sources said the decision was withdrawn keeping in mind the ongoing crisis in the country following the earthquakes. And time for a sports update.
Sports news.
Young cricketers Raju Rijal and Dipendra Airi are likely to miss the scheduled training in England due to Cannes negligence. Earlier, Cannes had decided to send under-19 skipper Raju and all-rounder Dipendra for training in Lourdes. The cricketer duo should have left for England in early April, but the indecision of Cannes now means that they won't be able to participate in the training due to tight cricket schedule. National cricket skipper Paras Khadka and coach Pubudu Dasanaike had lobbied for these players' training, but there are allegations that Cannes did not even go ahead with visa processing of the two players. Rupandai 11 has won the inaugural match against Pokhara Sports Club in the Tilotama Gold Cup football tournament. In the match played in Butwal's Anfar Technical Center, Rupandai won the match on tiebreakers. Following a 2-all deadlock, the match was decided on penalties. Rupandai prevailed 4-3 in the dramatic penalty shootout. Tribhuvan Army Club will take on Dharan in another match tomorrow. "92-year-old Harriet Thompson became the oldest woman to complete a marathon when she crossed the finish line at the Rock and Roll Marathon in San Diego. The former concert pianist and cancer survivor finished the 42.1-kilometer race in 7 hours, 24 minutes and 36 seconds. Thompson started running at the age of 76 and has now competed in 16 marathons to help raise money for cancer research.
I always write to my friends and I say, I think this is my last year. And then I do another one. So this is my 16th and I'm real pleased that I could get through it.
And time for weather update.
Brought to you by Asian Paints Ultima with Color Stay.
And before we wrap up, a reminder of the top stories once again. Politicians debate whether to deal with contentious issues first or promulgate charter ahead of a consensus government. Representatives of donor agencies recommend the government set up an independent body to look into reconstruction. Heat wave grips different parts of the country. Meteorological division says temperature to shoot up in coming days. And Malaysia Airlines, technically bankrupt, plans to terminate 6,000 employees. And those were the latest headlines. Up next is news in Nepali. Keep watching Kantipur Television. Good night.